Good morning, everyone. So excited to have you all here. Hopefully, you can hear me well. I know that some technical difficulties have been happening this morning, but we are here for day two of a four-part series called Spring Clean Your Mental Health. My name is Nia Jones. I am the Youth and College Division Director for the Black Mental Health Alliance for Education and Consultation Incorporated. And so we're really excited about doing something fresh and new this year. Yesterday, I shared about how to unpack, how to even get started on something such as something so daunting as spring cleaning, right? Nobody really likes it, but it's something that we do anyway. And so we talked about unpacking your mental health, unpacking and how to do that process, right? So people will always talk about, let's unpack that, let's dig deeper, but nobody will tell you exactly how to do it. And so yesterday I shared a few tips about how to engage with that. Today, we are joined by a special guest who will share about using herbs for your anxiety, different herbs and teas and blends that can help with your mental health. So excited to be able to share this with you all today. I will be in the comments answering any questions, comments, or concerns, and then I'll come back at the end of the presentation live to share some more information with you. But let's get started. As my computer is moving a little slow. But we're in this moment in COVID, and if it's taught us anything, it has taught us to be patient with our devices and all of that good stuff. So let's rock and roll.
This morning, and it's a much needed talk. So I'm very honored to be able to share some information with everyone in regards to herbalism and mental health and well-being and emotions and dealing with stress and anxiety. I think we all know that this is a pretty pressing time that we're in right now. And so the information is truly, truly needed. And I'm going to share my screen with you all because I'm such a visual person that I love when people can actually see what's going on. I'll take questions at the end because most likely once I share my screen, I won't actually be able to see your questions. All right. Okay, welcome. We're talking about herbalism and herbal spring cleaning. You know, spring cleaning is that particular time. It's that particular time of the year when everyone's like, yeah, it's time to declutter. I have to do my spring cleaning. And, you know, people are actually, getting rid of items out of their home and things like that. But when do we ever really get to talk about the internal spring cleaning and the emotions and dealing with stress and anxiety? And so hopefully in this particular hour, you'll be able to benefit from the information provided. You may not know me, so let me introduce myself. I am Angela Rahim. I am a certified master herbalist, certified aromatherapist, and I'm a registered yoga instructor. I teach a variety of classes. Currently, you can easily find me on Instagram as Rahim Herbals. Also, my website is rahimcollege.com. And don't worry about trying to take that information fast because at the end of everything, I will share my contact information for those who want to inquire about herbal classes, getting started with making your own herbal remedies and things like that. I am also an instructor for an institute called Ibn Sina Institute, and that is a UK-based institute. I teach a one-year program there as well. I'm also the author of the new children's herbal book called Sam the Junior Herbalist, which is basically inspired by my own children. I am a mom of 7. I have 6 boys and 1 girl. And Sam the Junior Herbalist is a book about a young boy who lives in Baltimore, and he's an herbalist, and he goes around in his Baltimore community making herbal remedies and teaching others about herbalism. So it's a very fun children's book. It just came out recently, and it's really used as a way to get children into herbalism and basically reawaken this age-old healing tradition, knowing that this tradition has been around longer than I have. And part of my duty and part of my work service is to share that herbalism is the people's medicine and how they can basically reawaken that part of them. Herbal safety, because it's so necessary, because people always say like, oh, herbs are so natural and I don't have to worry about it. And no, while herbs are natural and they're so great and wonderful, it's so important that we respect the plants and their medicinal properties, and know that there are certain ways to go about this safely. So not only are we talking about respecting herbs, when I say respecting herbs, it's like respecting that the time period that they're used in, respecting that herbs, like people, have their likes and dislikes. And I always compare, our relationship with plants is like our relationship with people. If you know the people in your life, and you know what they like and you know what they don't like, and plants also have things that they like and what they don't like. For example, while we're talking about, emotional healing and well-being and stress and anxiety and herbalism, St. John's wort is popular for being used as an antidepressant. But and it's an amazing herb, it likes to help in that particular time period, but also it doesn't like certain pharmaceuticals. So while we're talking about this, and knowing that if you are taking a pharmaceutical, something prescribed by your doctor, know that some herbs can interact with those pharmaceuticals. And so you want to be mindful. What I tell my students all the time is that it's really important to research the herbs that are mentioned, because what I'm going to mention in this 1 hour talk, you may be interested in some of these herbs. You may want to run out and go get them and use them in whatever ways that I may mention in this particular talk. But I won't be sharing all the contraindications of these herbs. And some of these herbs do have contraindications. Contraindications are basically like the times where you would not use this particular herb. So even if you're dealing with maybe high blood pressure, or you're taking pharmaceuticals and things like that, some herbs are not good in those certain capacities. So really getting to know your herb of choice is going to be beneficial, not only just for getting to know it and how it can help you, but also know that if this herb is something that is good for you and what you need. You may find that, okay, well, I'm not going to be able to take this herb, but then you can also find other herbs that are maybe safer and have similar properties of what you're looking for as well. Also being mindful of the seasons of life that we're in. And when I say the seasons of life, we're talking about pregnancy, breastfeeding, those particular seasons of life, and knowing that different herbs you're not going to be able to implement in those particular time periods. So if you're pregnant or if you're breastfeeding, you may have to wait until after having the baby or after breastfeeding to use particular herbs. You have to be mindful of those particular things as well. And I mentioned pharmaceuticals. Fine balance, fam. Okay, so I always get this rap as an herbalist that all herbalists are like pharmacists. We just push herbs on people and then tell them to go about their business. That's not what I do. I'm a big advocate for something that I call full circle healing. And when I talk about full circle healing, it is like everything is intimately connected. Our social, our mental, our emotional, our spiritual, all of these things are connected. And you'll find this in various modalities of healing, like Ayurveda, traditional Chinese medicine, that when disease and illness, things like that, these ailments happen, the body is off balance. And so that is a common thing that is said in different types of healing modalities. Same. So with what we're talking about here is that when we're not only going to talk about the herbs that are good for stress and anxiety, fatigue, for vitality, and for concentration, but it's also really important that we just not focus on the herbal aspect of things, but also our mental, physical, social, spiritual, and those particular components, and making sure that those areas are taken care of. So know that unhealthy processing of emotions can get stuck in your body and manifest physically. I always use myself as an example of tried and true. And so people just know that I'm not just speaking from texts that I've read or classes that I've attended. But a little background info about me is that I'm also a widow. I widowed at 33, and my late husband was in his late 30s when he passed away. And so after he passed, mentally, it was very draining. I didn't want to concentrate on anything. Physically, I didn't want to go out. I didn't want to talk to anybody. I didn't want to eat. Socially, I didn't want to talk to anybody because I didn't think anyone could understand. And spiritually, wherever you are when you're in your connection spiritually, for me, it was a matter of how can bad things happen to good people and why not bad people or anything like that. So I was off balance, and it was just from this particular aspect of dealing with this in my life that every area of my being was affected. And so I was definitely getting sicker longer. I would catch colds and things faster, and my body was really having a hard time with that, with even just dealing with the process of grief. And that's why when we're talking today about emotions and herbalism in that regards, that I'll talk about heartache and grief, because that's something, we all have our moments dealing with heartache, whether it's broken heart from relationships or dealing with, grief, the loss of a loved one, a friend, a spouse, a partner, dealing with just even losses in society. These herbs I find to be really beneficial. So I always tell my students that this is something that you look at yourself, and I don't usually let them share this information with me. They can if they want, but they look at this and they write down their mental, physical, spiritual, social, and then they decide what things that they could do to be better in those areas to aid them in the healing that they want. So physically, yes, eating right, eating proper, nutritious, nutrient dense foods is going to be important, because the saying is that food affects your mood. So if you're eating things that are uh, not helpful in the regards to the outcome that you want, then you're not going to achieve the goal in which you seek. Same thing for your mental, your social, and your spiritual. If you have unhealthy relationships and these things are really getting to you, then and you find that we deal with the root of the issues. It's not just we're going to treat the symptom of an issue. You really need to get to the root and work on that as well. So using your herbs in conjunction with other different modalities of healing is going to be give you what you need to achieve the goal that you want. And what that means is basically, if you're going to use herbs in regards to stress and anxiety, also get into the root of what's your stress and what's your anxiety. Is it certain relationships? Is it a job? Or working on those different aspects to have overall healing is what you want. Why are herbs helpful for anxiety? So listen, in the hustle and bustle of daily life, we benefit from our plant allies. I don't think that this is something that is difficult to understand by anybody in the world today. We're dealing with, we've been dealing with the pandemic for a year or so, and we've been dealing with, the effects of that. A lot of people are, especially in the beginning of the pandemic, a lot of people were home. It was hard for a lot of people to be there. Some people needed, they longed for company. They miss going out and seeing people and things like that. And this really had taken a toll on a lot of people mentally. So in this, when I tell people, I gave a talk at Morehouse, and when I told the college students, there are two types of herbs that, if anything, I would say everybody needs to have on hand, from children to adults, so on and so forth, is your nervines, or also said as nervines, and adaptogens, however you want to say it. In this particular society, we need them. And herbalism is the people's medicine. And this is something that is just commonly said in the herbal community. Herbalism is the people's medicine. Herbalism is the people's medicine. So I just added on a part to it, and I said that in order for herbalism to be the people's medicine, the people need to know about it. We can totally benefit from the from making teas, from making ointments, and that to not underestimate the effectiveness of a tea. And it's so simple, but so medicinal and effective, and that it's something that we can all do. That herbalism is not exclusive. It doesn't belong to one group of people. It doesn't belong to just one particular group. It belongs to everybody. It is the people's medicine, because you can, and we're talking about spring cleaning and internal spring cleaning, you can go out and see dandelion roots and dandelion root, because you can use the flower, you can use the leaves, you can use the roots. And not only is this plant a natural way for cleansing your body, it's a mild laxative, it's good for your liver. It is one of those herbs when people are talking about cleaning out their body. Dandelion is amazing for that. And that dandelion is so easily accessible. You can eat the greens in a salad. You can I know people that make dandelion fritters out of the flowers and make mock coffee out of the dandelion root, because it's so strong. And some people who don't like to drink coffee, dandelion root is pretty nice replacement for that. But it's the people's medicine. It's out there. And so part of my purpose and mission is to go out there and say, share with people, these plants are available. You should definitely consider using them. And that knowing that if you do this properly and safely, you can use them in conjunction with other different healing modalities as well. How are herbs used? Because there's no point in me saying just use lavender or just use chamomile or just use ashwagandha. But knowing how to use them is also very important for this particular talk. Infusions and decoctions, aromatherapy, massage, and don't forget to do your lifestyle changes, because that is significant. I'll tell a story, and I said I will forever tell this story. I was on Facebook, and this guy, he sends me a message on Facebook, and he says, "Do you have any herbs for high blood pressure?" And I said, yeah. I said, but first, let me ask you a question. I said, how is your eating habits? And then he said, well, my eating habits are pretty horrible, but he was like, but what you got for that high blood pressure? And I said, well, I won't be able to help you then. And he said, why? I said, because I can definitely give you herbs to help in regards to high blood pressure, but if you're not eating properly and doing the other things that will help for what you're trying to do and the goal here is to have lower blood pressure. Not, he doesn't want his blood pressure high. So I said that in order for, that to happen, then there's other components that need to be done as well in conjunction with the herbs. But if I give you the herbs and you don't do those things, what you'll come back to me and say, those herbs didn't work. And then my response to you is going to be, no, you did not work with those herbs. And you have to work with your plant allies. And then that's in order to have achieve optimum healing. Remember, we're going back to the full circle healing. You have to eat right. Of course, let food be thy medicine and let medicine be thy food. If you're not eating properly, then you're counterproductive. That's what I call it. It's just counterproductive. You are making it even harder for yourself to obtain the goal that you want, because while you're trying to move forward and you are using herbs, because that is a step forward. That is a great step forward, but it's going to be a longer climb to the top, which is your goal, because you're doing things counterproductive to it. You're still eating wrong. You're still not maybe, and including, physical exercise. You're still, doing things that are counterproductive to the goal that you want to achieve. So lifestyle changes, look at, back to the circle, look at the things in your life. And we're talking about stress and anxiety, the things that may be in your life that cause stress and anxiety. I know a lot for me over, I think it was like about 4 years ago. And I said that my husband passed away. My stress and my anxiety was through the roof as a mother of 7 and dealing not only with my grief, but the grief of the children as well. Because at that time I did have some older children. They're quite older now. Well, not quite older. Like my oldest son is now, he's about to be 14. So that means that 4 years ago, he was only 10 when his dad passed, but I still had to deal with the grieving and the children waking up and crying and, and having their moments, because we know that grief is something that, and for something that can happen even if you're having a wonderfully awesome day and some song comes on the radio or a certain smell or you see a picture and all of a sudden these feelings return of grief, and that you are now having to deal with that. So like I said, I had to make lifestyle changes and also included different modalities of healing. I got acupuncture. I also went and had therapy. The children had therapy. And also that's how I got into yoga and doing relaxation techniques and focusing on the pranayama with like the breathing exercises and incorporating yoga in my life. So I'm very much so an advocate of like so many healing modalities because they feel like they work together really well. I'm a big fan of acupuncture and cupping and things like that. So consider all those things when you're using herbs as well. What other things that I can do to achieve the outcome that I'm looking for? And what things do I need to cut out in order to achieve the outcome that I'm looking for? Herbs to have for emotional and mental well-being. So I'm so glad this is recorded because then I know that people will want to go back and go ahead and write those particular herbs and say, what did you say? But the cool thing about this is that it's recorded. Nervines, however you want to say it. This is the herb right here. These herbs are amazing. Like I said, in this day and age, who doesn't need it? Who? And I was saying to the students in Morehouse, I said that I know that you're dealing with, at that particular time, the students were dealing with, they were dealing with tests, grades, studying, needed help with concentration. They might have been nervous about upcoming exams. They might have been also, stressing about their finances and paying tuition and things like that. So these herbs are amazing. I told them these are like 2, and there's so many different properties of herbs and that things that we can talk about. But these herbs are so good for the nervous system, and I'm going to share quite a few of them. Well, not quite a few, but a few that you can start out with. These herbs are good. Basically, they're like antispasmodic. They're good for muscle tension, help with relaxing the muscles. These herbs help with sleep because when you're stressed and things like that, you tend to have trouble sleeping. And I always use back to my life experience of grieving, definitely had a hard time sleeping. Nervine tonics strengthen the body and restore tissue, like oats. Don't take oats for granted. Oat straw is antidepressant. It's a nutritive herb, which is basically, it's nourishing, and it's also traditionally used for skin irritations. Also, it helps with the body cope with the demands that's made against it. And I tell people stress happens. I don't have herbs to say you will never be stressed again. But I say I have herbs to help your body be able to handle the demands that are made against it. And these herbs are like the armor of it, because the stress is just pretend and close your eyes for a moment and think about just stress being something that is trying to punch at your body. And then you have your armor on of your nervines, your adaptogens, and all your healing methods that you're using to help with getting better. And it's blocking that. It's blocking it because it's coming. It happens all the time. And I don't have, if I had magical solutions to just be like, you'll never be stressed again, you'll never have that ever, I'd have already used it. But St. John's wort is restorative, is analgesic, it's anti-inflammatory. Analgesic is great because it is good for pain and people who don't have back pain and things like that. It's restorative. It is going to help with restoring your system. Herbs to consider having on hand. Lemon balm is one of my absolute favorites that children love. And so this herb is good for like the children and elderly because of its lemon taste and its lemon scent. It's an enjoyable remedy to have on hand. It is an antiviral herb. It is a herb that will relax the body. It will calm the mind. A lot of times in society, especially now that we're doing a lot of things digitally, a lot of children are just from early in the morning for school, starting on the computer and practically on the computer all day, to wanting to play computer games or any kind of other games or watching their devices, watching videos. And so it's been an increase in our screen time. And a lot of times at the end of the day, people have a hard time sleeping because they're still on their phones in bed, or you're still bringing their computers and sitting in the bed and still doing that. Well, it's really good. Not only is it good for just overall getting better sleep, but it's also good for our body to have rest, because rest is a key component in health. So having lemon balm will help with ADHD, the mind that continuously keeps on going and needs something to just calm it down for a moment. Catnip. And everyone always says to me, catnip, my cats love catnip. Well, your cats love catnip and you should totally love it too, because it's gentle, it's calming, it's great for those who have trouble sleeping. It is also one of those herbs that help with lowering fevers. There is an herbalist, and I don't actually have the words verbatim, but the herbalist said, and this was like a long time ago, that for a person, and it said really a mother who has catnip in their home will save that child from much suffering, and the mother from taking them from like many doctor's visits, because this herb is such a great herb to have on hand. Passion flower, lavender, chamomile, valerian. These are calming herbs. So my suggestion would be that if you're not taking a sedative, then these are great for relaxation. If you are taking a sedative, then you definitely have to be mindful of not overdoing it. And that, like I said, it goes back to herbal safety. Rosemary, I probably will get flack from people because I still put the old botanical name for rosemary, and I don't put it's a salvia, but I just put rosmarine. It's officinalis. It supports and strengthens the nervous system. Also, it is one of the herbs that is great for focus and concentration. Remember, when we're dealing with stress and we're dealing with anxiety, we have a hard time concentrating on things happening around us. Remember, even though we are in our stressful moment, things still keep happening. Time is still moving. Things need to be done. Bills still need to be paid. If you have children still need to be taken care of. If you're in school, you still have assignments that you need to turn in. So while we are still in our stressful situation, life still keeps on going, and we are either going along with it or we're resisting it, which is difficult. Rosemary is going to help with focus and concentration. It's one of those herbs that said to help with increasing memory. Tried and true. I have so many stories about rosemary, but I'll give a short one. When I was in Georgia, I took a plant identification course. I took 2 of them. It was Woody ID, where we had to memorize many trees and shrubs. And then I also had to take herbaceous identification, where I had to memorize the Latin names and the details of many herbaceous plants. That was quite a hard semester because we had to remember the Latin names, we had to spell them correctly. And of course, college can be a bit of a stressful place to be sometimes. And of course, we're all a lot of us students are very worried. Every week we had to go in there and identify nearly 100 different plants with no, and it was just a plant on the table. It could have been a leaf or a flower or a bark of a tree. And we had to identify it and spell the name properly of this particular, if it was herbaceous or woody, we had to spell it properly. And you would lose points for spelling Latin names wrong. My teacher was really big on this. We were all stressed out. Every Wednesday, we would sit in the hallway like 2 hours before class, talking about plants, holding them up, asking, what plant is this? What's the Latin name? Things like that. And I would be that student that would come in every week with rosemary on the side of my hijab. And of course, all the students are like, what's up with that? And I said, because rosemary helps with memory, it helps with concentration, helps me focus. And yeah, then it helped for both semesters because I ended up with A's both semesters. I think it was A one semester, B the other semester. And I was like, it really helped a lot. Nettles, Urtica dioica. It is very nutritious. So when we're dealing with stress and anxiety and a lot of times we don't eat properly, we need to also nourish our body through these situations. And nettles is a very nutritious herb. It has A, C, D, and B complex. What I also love about nettle is that it is considered something called like a nutraceutical. It is just that nutritious and beneficial. Not only is it going to be an herb that will help with giving your body some good stuff that it needs, it is also an herb that is good for people who are dealing with allergies as well. It has antihistamine properties, but yeah, it actually does sting too because it goes by stinging nettle. I just put nettle here, but it actually does sting you. So that's just something to take in consideration for those who are looking for access to something like stinging nettle. Milky oats is another good one. We're talking about nourishing the nervous system, improves nerve function, and basically restores the nervous system. Things that we definitely need. And we'll talk about the different ones that you may want to combine together. The adaptogen herbs, they help with managing stress and restore balance. I love it. I love these herbs so much because they're not only going to be like helpful with restoring balance, these herbs help with the immune system, which you know that if you're dealing with stress and you're dealing with anxiety, it's not helpful for your immune system. These herbs also help with concentration and work great in environments conducive to the goal intended to be reached. So if you're looking for better health and things like that, then these are the herbs that you want to consider having on hand. I totally love herbs like this first one, holy basil, is also known as tulsi, is it's a wonderful herb and easy to grow. It improves vitality and it's invigorating. A protective herb, and it is needed to help in such stressful times. It also lowers blood pressure as well and is known to help the body to adapt to the demands of stress. Because like I said, stress will happen, and these are the herbs that will give your body what it exactly needs to be able to handle it. Tried and true. Rhodiola, it's an antidepressant and helps with physical and mental endurance. It helps the body withstand wear and tear, and also helps with fatigue. Shishandra it helps the liver, improves clarity, and helps the nervous system, and it's a mild antidepressant. When I talk about liver-loving herbs, we're talking about like thistle and dandelion and shishandra. These herbs are great. When we're talking about emotions stored in the body, it is a common belief that our emotions are stored in our body. Whether it's anger and grief and fear, and stored in our liver or in our kidneys or in our throat and things like that. Whenever we are storing emotions inside of our body, it is never helpful to store them in our body. We have to find the proper channels to release those emotions that we have inside. So for me, when it was dealing with grief, I was most likely I was the person that would say, well, unless your husband died or your spouse died, then you really can't talk to me about grieving. And for a long time, that was my standpoint until I was I actually happened to stumble into a therapist by mistake, going into a local shop thinking that it was for some other type of healing modality that was being offered, but it ended up being a therapist. And then, I thought, okay, well, I'm here, so I'll give it a try. And it actually turned out to be one of the greatest things that I was able to do in regards to dealing with grief and stress, and being able to have that outlet of to communicate what is going on with myself was in a safe space, was something that everybody needs. Heartache and grief. Um, these herbs will help with uplifting the aching heart, and so tried and so true, and very beautiful herbs to have. Violet, which is out now and amazing. My son, he's 5. Him and I we had collected like a week ago some violets that were local in an area that was good enough for foraging. And the violet was, not only we made a violet syrup that was so delicious, and then also we made a tea of violets. But violet uplifts the brokenhearted, and its leaves are shaped like a heart. So I always say it has an affinity for the heart. Not only is violet going to be good for uplifting and for broken hearts and emotions, is also good for the lymphatic system as well. Rose. Rose, who doesn't love rose? Rose not only smells amazing, but it is also one of those herbs that is uplifting. When you look at heart tonics and tonics for dealing with emotions and well-being and things like that for emotional support, you'll most likely find rose to be one of those herbs recommended for that. Motherwort, Leonaris cardiaca. When you hear the word cardiaca, what do you think of? The cardiac, heart, cardiaca. Leonaris is like the lion's tail. Motherwort is good for heart palpitations, and for those who deal with anxiety and may experience the feeling of your heart racing, and that it's not a good feeling to have at all. And motherwort has been one of those herbs for me that has helped in that regard. Hawthorn, what a beautiful tree. Hawthorn is supports heart function. Literally, like, it is not just for emotions, but it will help with your heart. Mimosa, and it was wonderful because I see these trees, and when you study herbalism and you go out into the world and you see these plants and you see these trees, you look at them very differently, because they're so beneficial. And it's like, if only more people knew about them, then they would be able to help themselves in so much in preventative ways. This tree is known as the tree of happiness. And when I travel between Baltimore and Georgia, I see mimosa trees in Georgia. I see them so much, and they're so beautiful. It helps with heartache and loss and sadness. Linden is calming. And so these herbs are something that everybody could consider using. Also, you just have to look at the contraindications for your herbs before really getting into them. But these herbs are always recommended for grieving and heartache, whether you're dealing with the breakup or a loss of someone close to you in regards to death. Then these herbs would definitely be something you want to have on hand. I named this tea from a friend, and she would always say, I get on my own last nerve. And so I just made this tea blend called on my last nerve tea blend. It is a mixture of lemon balm and oat straw. And it's so herbalism also doesn't have to be complex. You don't have to use 4 or 5 different herbs all the time, and you can be okay in simplicity and being able to use 1 herb or 2 herbs to achieve what you want as well. So I like simple as well. So a lot of times my recipes don't include so many different herbs. Hardy tea, roses, and motherwort. And I'll talk about how to make those as well as far as steps. My good night blend is of chamomile and lavender, which helped a lot with my children who were like not my daughter so much, but my six boys who were definitely like high energy and excited and things like that. Our chamomile lavender tea blend really helped with just the end of the day calm. And also we have a drink called, and I didn't put it here, called Lavenade. And it was something that my son, my second oldest son, made the name up of a combination of lavender and lemons to make a lemonade that and had a very lavender taste to it. And it's one of our end of the day drinks, like after dinner, one of our end of the day drinks, because of the benefits of lavender, with lavender being calming. It's an antibacterial herb. It is an herb that is something that everybody is familiar with, because when I go into essential oils, then lavender is going to be one of those ones that comes up because it's popular and it's great to have. But in a side note, in the midst of all these herbs that I'm mentioning for stress and anxiety, just also remember that it is important that each of us do our part environmentally, giving back. And if we can only imagine, because when we talk about essential oils and how much plant material is needed. I'm sorry. When we talk about how much plant material is needed, then excuse me. So when we talk about how much plant material is needed, then we have to realize that each of us have an environmental responsibility, and that these plants are just not, something that we could continuously use over and over and over again without doing our actual part environmentally by giving back. So before I go into more remedies, just have to share that important aspect of when we're dealing with plants, is that different ways that we can give back is by gardening, by supporting organizations such as United Plant Savers that help with taking care of plant habitats. And so that's all things that we can consider doing, and plus multiple other ways environmentally, but just to remember that's important. So having chamomile lavender at the end of the day is something that you could consider as well. And making ointments. I make one for a friend that's called Calm Balm, or it's also called Sakina, which is basically an Arabic word that means something like tranquility. And she was a young girl in college, and she would always ask me about making this ointment and always using it. So this is one of the ointments that I've made. But lavender, making an ointment of using lavender flowers, adding chamomile essential oil, because something that could be applied and used on a regular basis, because we're always out and about and on the go, that we may not, be able to have time to make tea. Not everybody has time in the morning to make tea. They're like up and out the door. You can use these herbs in different ways. And that's why I love it so much, because you can use essential oils and you can make massage oils or ointments and take those with you as well and still get benefits. So essential oils to also consider having: lavender for calming, lemon for uplifting. I always find citrus smells to be very amazing and helps me a lot. Rose is uplifting, chamomile, frankincense, bergamot. Great herbs to have on hand. Also, in regards to environmental aspect, making sure that you're not using an endangered plant, or if you're making sure that your plants are sourced properly from local, or if you can get it locally, or from companies that are having good ethical standards, is always important. Herbs to have on hand is my little list. I didn't mention all of these in detail, but Definitely. Ashwagandha was one I did not mention, but it's super popular for as an adaptogen. Uh, I mentioned lemon balm. These are herbs that people can write and consider adding into their home apothecary. How to make your herbal remedies. So when we're talking about um, herbs like eleuthero root or berries and hawthorn, like hawthorn berries, and or if you're using barks and things like that, this method is the way to make your herbal remedy. These A decoction is made with the harder parts of the herb. It is the roots, the rhizome, bark, berries, and this is the particular method of how you would want to do that to effectively get the extract the medicinal properties out of that particular herb into your drink. So herbs, water, you're going to basically place those herbs in water. You're going to bring that water to a boil and then reduce the heat, reduce it and let it do that for 25 minutes. And then once it's done, you can cover and let it cool. Strain out those herbs that you're no longer going to use. Sometimes people say that you can make another decoction out of those particular herbs. If you don't have an interest in doing that, some people, compost their herbs. But you can strain and discard those herbs and drink within 48 hours. Anything longer than that is just, I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't even go. I prefer 24 hours, really. Now you may say, okay, that's for the harder parts of the plant, but what about the softer parts like chamomile flowers, lavender flowers, and dandelion flowers? Like what will we use for that? This method is called an infusion. Making an infusion is for the gentle parts of the plant. You're going to use your herbs, you'll have your water, but instead of like a decoction of putting your herbs in and boiling it, you will just only boil your water first. After your water is done boiling, you turn it off, add the herbs in there, and then you cover it. My thing is, the longer it sits, the stronger it gets. Let it sit for about 10 minutes, strain those herbs, and enjoy. Like I said, it's for the gentle part of the plant, the leaves, the flowers. Those are the gentle parts of the plant. And I would say finish it in a decent amount of time, which I would say 24 hours, the time that you started, give you to until that same time the next day. Ideally, just drink it in that day. So care for your body, thinning hair, because when people are stressed, hair. Rosemary, you can use. Isn't it great how rosemary you can use for a tea to help with your concentration, or you can use rosemary as an ointment for aches and pains, and you can also use it in your hair as a massage oil to stimulate the hair follicles. And you would just use 4 drops of that essential oil in a carrier oil. So if you're not using jojoba, you can use olive oil, argan oil, coconut oil, and apply, or cedarwood for your hair. Different remedies for anxiety and dealing with depression and tension. If you're dealing with digestive problems, I know a lot of people who sometimes when children are dealing with nerves and anxiety, they'll say that their stomach hurt. Just how amazing that these herbs can be used and their different properties, that lemon balm is not going to be also a good mild antidepressant and good for the nervous system and calms your body, but it's also good for digestive related problems. In herbalism, that is called a carminative herb, and those are herbs that will definitely help your digestive system. So it'll also, calm palpitations and encourage sleep as well. If we're talking about panic attacks and headaches, consider an herb like skullcap. Dealing with headaches and migraines, linden will definitely come back into play. As I said, linden is good for heartaches and heartache and grief, but linden can also be used in regards to having a headache. Knowing that when we're emotionally stressed, it is super important to eat well. It is super important to exercise regularly. And allow time for relaxation. Know that rest, when I say with the body or just needing rest, know that rest is not just getting sleep, but you may have to take a social media rest. You may need to take a creative rest. I'm an author of several books, and sometimes I have to take a rest as well from just creatively. And also, when I say that, they always say that there's 7 types of rest, and creative rest, social, um, creative, social, rest in sensory. We're overloaded sensory. Sometimes it's so great to just take a time out. Mental rest, as well, and just know that even emotional rest and spiritual rest. Find the areas that you need to take more rest in, and do that for your body. Whether it's going out, grounding, to take a moment away from the activities that you're doing, just to regroup, refocus, and refresh. You definitely need to do that. Concentration, rosemary, frankincense. Either one of these are great. I personally not do both combined, but rosemary, frankincense, these are great, and then you can put them in olive oil, and apply, which is great. Fatigue, oat straw, nettle, make an infusion, which I explain how to do. Those are going to be great for fatigue as well. My contact information is here. Contact information. And I have to say, because I have to laugh because people are calling me and texting me during this, but, and also turning off your phone sometimes is going to be helpful too. Contact information, I'm pretty easy to find on Facebook. I'm Angela Rahim on Facebook. On Instagram, it's Rahim Herbals. You can easily send me a email at angelaherbals@gmail.com. My website is rahimcollege.com. And also my children's book is Sam the Junior Herbalist. It's at samthejrherbalist.com as well. I do consultations. It's very rare because I spend a lot of time teaching people, because I believe that empowering people and teaching them how to make their herbal remedies is so needed. And there's a famous herbalist, he goes by the name of Dr. Christopher, and he says that every home should have an herbalist. And I believe that as well. And so for me, it's empowering people to not just have to wait for me to tell you what to do or make something for you, but I definitely prefer teaching it and showing people so that they can be able to do it, and then also do that in their homes as well. And that's how herbalism continues. When we share this information, and when I talk to you like I'm talking to you today, you can share that information with other people, and therefore this plant medicine will continue on and on, for generations. And this is just, how herbalism has been passed on, and I'm very thankful to be able to do that today. And so, any questions?
All right, so we hope you enjoyed that training around some herbal work that is very Black. We are the Black Mental Health Alliance, and so that is very culturally appropriate that we sometimes go back to those things that worked for us and in our communities. And so I didn't see any questions in the comments box, but we'll continually check back in to see if there were any questions. Before we go today, I want to make sure that I share information about the Black Mental Health Alliance. And so we are almost done. But before we go, here's our contact information. Always feel free to reach out to us via our website, blackmentalhealth.com, or info@blackmentalhealth.com is the best email to reach out to, and our team will make sure that you get an answer. You also have my personal information as it relates to the Youth and College Division. So we do work for young people between the ages of 5 and 25, specifically for Black youth. And so if you have any questions, comments, concerns, feel free to reach out to me directly. Don't forget about the BMHA podcast. It's available on all podcast outlets. It's called Real Talk Black Minds Matter. And we talk about some really amazing things on there, whether it's Black love or Black women leading or politics or laughter or it's all kinds of topics on there. So you'll be sure to be able to get some information from the Black perspective and always looping in mental health during those conversations. Once a month, on the last day of every month, we release the newest episode. So be sure to subscribe to that. We also have a Poetry as Mental Health Club. Our friends at Do More, Be More will be having our next event on May the 7th. A young woman named Delicia Green, or Obsidian is her stage name. She'll be releasing her book about all of her poetry, and she'll be leading a writing exercise. And so it'll be really amazing. I'll be opening us up with information about Black girls and Black women and their mental health, because it is important. And so definitely check that out. That'll be on Instagram Live on our page. And you can follow us on social media. On Facebook, we're the Black Mental Health Alliance for Education and Consultation Incorporated. You got to say the whole thing, but we'll be sure to pop right up in your search feed, I'm sure. On Instagram, we have 2 pages, Black_Minds_Matter_, which I call our parent page, but is more information for practicing clinicians and friends of the Black Mental Health Alliance and everyone in general. And then we have at Young Black Minds Matter, which is specifically for youth and young adults and children between ages of 5 and 25, and individuals who serve those young people and work with those young people. And so definitely give us a follow over there. Brand new information. We have a TikTok account at Black Mental Health Matters. Some really amazing content will be coming there, as well as you can follow us on Twitter for consistent updates and tweets and posts, all related to Black mental health. And we have at BMHA Youth, which is the Youth and College Division page, and we have at Black Mental Health. And so you can follow us, find all of that information on our page. It is always there, always being updated. With some amazing information and partnerships. And so thank you for joining us today. Tomorrow we will have a Zen garden walk. We're still working out some of the logistics, but we will be sure to be live right here on YouTube with that information. I'm sure we all need some Zen in our lives after the last year that we have experienced together. And so we'll have that tomorrow afternoon. And then next week on April 30th, we're going to be closing it out, talking about reset, refocus, renew. And I'll be sharing that information with you. I hope you found this information helpful and enjoyable. Again, you have our information. Feel free to reach out if you have any questions. Until next time, take care of yourselves. Bye-bye.